Welcome to the Meridian Expanse, a continent of infinite possibilities. My name is Elindrathil Brightmoon, Archmage of the Arcane Assembly, and I shall tell you the tale of an odd group of individuals chosen by the gods to save this plane from total destruction. Margil Oxbow was born to the Duskfriend clan of Furbolgs in the Great Forest of Bethabor. As a youngling, he was one of the handful of children to survive the great fire that engulfed the Duskfriend village and left behind nothing but the burned land now known as the Scorched Wood. As he grew older, he travelled to the monastery of the Order of the Sacred Wind, where he was trained as a monk and learned the rather unique way of the Drunken Master. During a rather dark chapter of Bethabor's history, the capital city of Miranduil was besieged by a host of evil-aligned goblins sworn to the betrayer Maglubiet. This is when I met Margil, and we fought together to defend the city and were ultimately successful. Though many lives were lost, we were able to ward them off, which led to other goblins coming to the negotiating table and eventually joining the Ecclesia, the central governing body of the entire expanse. Ahaya was born the third of 6 children to a nomadic family of Kor who travelled the expanse following the growth cycle of blessed herbs. As farmers, they spent the growing season in Shay, a village north of the Rabble, in a region known as Willalard. The Rabble is uniquely charged with what the locals believe to be spiritual energy, which explains the many floating islands housed within it. The beliefs surrounding this land have formed a religion known as the Rabolians, and this faith was used to explain Ahaya's sudden emergence as a divine magic user, the only one of his kind. His existence was seen as tangible evidence of the power of the Rabble, and he quickly rose through the ranks to become head of the Council, the Rabolian missionary sect. Izrana Yahim never knew her own origins. She was raised by a couple from High Sail, a human and a halfling. Life in the biggest city in the world was never easy. Crime lurked around every corner, despite the reforms the Ecclesia had helped the local government to enact. That didn't stop a young tiefling girl from pursuing her dreams of becoming an artificer and joining the Artificers Guild. As far back as she can remember, Izzy's mind was shared by a presence she knows only as Mal, a wisecracking troublemaker that can take over Izzy's body at the most inconvenient of times. It was one of these times that Mal got into some trouble with a crime lord named Vandrolia. She blew up his ship and left Izzy to deal with the consequences. A chase ensued, but luckily Izzy ran into Gracia, a gnomish boy from Karstand and fellow member of the Artificers Guild. He helped her escape the city, and the two travelled together for some time. Chatter was born into the Inuan flock of Kenku in the southern forests of Adilcialis. Left in the snow by his parents at birth, Chatter almost didn't survive, but a godlike figure appeared to him with long black feathered wings and a hood to conceal her face. She poured life back into him and left him with a nearby flock. He roamed from flock to flock looking for a place to call home, but found none. Eventually, he made his way to the northern city of Alistair, where he eked out a living replicating objects with the abilities gifted to him by his patron. The hooded figure had revealed herself to be the Raven Queen, and he spent the rest of his life devoted to her. It was divine intervention that brought these individuals to my attention, and enabled me to summon them to Altea, the capital of the entire Meridian Expanse. The city was constructed on the largest floating islands south of the Rabble by mages of the Arcane Assembly, and is where the Ecclesia was founded. The heads of the Ecclesia, Arcane Assembly, and Artificers Guild all reside here, each with a district devoted to us. I invited these individuals here to attend the moot as my honoured guests. This year was to be the election of a new High Sovereign, the leader of the Ecclesia. I invited them to my viewing box for the ceremony, and they brought along some friends they had made, Gracia, a gnomish boy, and Jado, the crown prince of the Northern Gobi. We were to witness the election of a new High Sovereign, but fate would intervene as the former High Sovereign was concluding her speech. The hall erupted in an arcane explosion of energy. I was able to shield the group and lead them to my tower, where I always kept an airship docked. We sailed from the city as fast as we could, but it was not going to be fast enough. The entire city was being engulfed by the explosion, and the shockwaves would evaporate us. I summoned all my power to open a portal for the ship, which was a risk given the unstable nature of arcane magic at that moment. The portal opened, and we sailed through, but when we opened our eyes, we found ourselves no longer in the Meridian Expanse, but in a sea of stars as far as the eye could see. I had read about the astral plane, but never thought I'd actually see it. It took time for me to open another portal, and when I finally did, it wasn't big enough. The ship crashed against its edges and tore off the wings and propellers. On the other side, the ship careened toward the ground, and we crash-landed on an island of ash and lava. This was the Cinder Isle. I'm not sure why my subconscious brought me here, but it must have been my connection to Cain Balefire, a former friend that now resided on the isle. It didn't take long for him to find us and bring us to his master, the Lord of Magma. It was here I received the news of the world from my mages in the field. We were gone for 4 months. My home, the Verdants, was in the middle of a civil war. My half-brother was attempting to take the throne from my sister, the rightful heir after my father's death at Altea. Samobra, the desert capital of the northern Gobi, was half in ruins thanks to the debris of the fallen city above it, and Jado's mother, the queen, was still missing. She had been a member of the Ecclesia and was present in Altea. The safeguards should have teleported her to safety, but it seems they either didn't work or sent her somewhere beyond our reach. In the highlands, a host of drow had emerged from the Underdark near the trench city of Karstand. No demands had been made, but reports say they prepared to head to Arisia, the capital of the region. War is also brewing in the Orion Vale. The city-states of Kotarawa and Timon vie for dominance in the region. Apparently, a deal had been struck. If the king of Timon helped my mother and sister win the civil war, they would turn their armies to the Vale and aid in the destruction of Kotarawa. Willelard was also badly hurt by the sundering. The city of Halif was all but destroyed. Glulishay declared independence, and one of the smaller floating islands is drifting slowly toward the capital of Adlasir, with no sign of stopping. The Rebolians have become more cult-like and militaristic, claiming the southern lands of Willelard near the rabble, and preaching that if more people had believed in the rebels' power, the sundering wouldn't have happened. I decided I must return home at once, parting ways with the group that I had assembled. We sailed together for Jambatan, just west of Timon. Here we witnessed an attack on Raja Ceres, leader of Timon, and his apprentice Tamria. If that weren't enough, while we slept that night, Gracia was murdered and the assassins escaped. The group decided to pursue them while I left for the Verdants. Along the way they encountered a strange individual by the name of Leaf, who had been tracking the party for some time in the form of a dog. He told them he believed them to be important for reasons he did not elaborate upon. He offered to help the group track their prey and journeyed with them. I'm unsure of his motives, and will be keeping a close eye on him going forward. They caught up with the assassins south of Cusp Town, and dispatched the target, letting his companion accompany them to Samobra, where Prince Jado assured her a fair trial. They learned from her the real target was the journal Gracia kept in his armor, which Isrona knew used to belong to Miraboria, the current High Tinkerer of the Artificers Guild. They spent the night in Cusp Town, a settlement on the border of Bethabor and the coast. Here they met with one of my mages, Tourmaline, High Magus of Bethabor, who teleported them to Samobra. There they learned from Jado's father, the Sheik, that my tower had been sighted in the southern Gobi, in Sons of Ainur territory. They are a cult that worships a minor divine of death, Ainur. The tower was set to teleport at my assistant's command once the appropriate Ecclesia members were inside, 2 of which should have been the Queen and the High Sovereign. The party set off to locate the tower, but when they found it, inside were only 2 dead Ecclesia members and the body of my assistant. There was no sign of the Queen or the High Sovereign. Following the trail, they continued until they found a massive Sons of Ainur war camp, where they learned of the cult's plans to bring Ainur into the material plane using a massive statue that they would transport all the way to the border. To do this, they would need to sacrifice thousands of people. Their target would be Samobra. Using the Queen, they would trick the Samobrans into opening the gate and letting their men inside. The group ultimately decided it was too risky to attempt a rescue, and they knew the cult needed the Queen alive, so she was safe for now. Leaving Jado in Samobra, the rest of the group decided to remain together and head for Highsail, hoping to find Miraboria in the Artificer's Tower and get some answers about the sundering. They were teleported to the ship of Eternal, the High Magus of the coast, which was currently under attack by the locals of Highsail, and was flying over the city to escape north. They were headed for Kite Roost Island, where the local Aarakocra begrudgingly let them land. While on the island, the party left the boat to explore, but upon their return found the crew murdered and arrived just in time to witness Eternal kill himself rather than be taken by the assailants. The party attempted to fight back but were magically put to sleep and carried to the sacrificial altar of another death cult. They were able to free themselves and defeat the cultists, barely escaping with their lives. By the time they returned to the city, they found my army marching on the aviary, the seat of the Aarakocran Elder Council. I assigned Tourmaline and Little Spirit, High Magus of Elysia, to lead the army and bring Eternal's killers to justice. It would seem, however, one of the council members was working with a flock of cultists living in the mountains north of the island, unbeknownst to the rest of them. She alone was responsible for Eternal's death and the near death of his companions. My representatives agreed to stand down and even brokered a deal with the Aarakocrans to help re-establish order in Highsail. I asked the group to take Eternal's amulet to his chosen successor, a woman named Cypher, located somewhere in the city. Once that is done, the Assembly, the Aarakocrans, and Cypher's forces on the ground will help lead the city out of the current chaos it is in. Little Spirit escorted the group back to the mainland so they could make their way to Highsail. And from there, I shall let the adventurers themselves tell the story. Hey there, this is Grimwolf. Thank you so much for watching our video. We truly appreciate it. If you don't want to miss anything, please subscribe and leave a like while you're down there. We post new videos every week. Between our Dungeons & Dragons campaign, video game reviews, and other gaming content, there is something for everyone. See you next week.